But I guess the way we could begin is catching up with what's happened since Miami.
Sure. Yeah, man. So Miami was what Labor Day weekend of last year. So after Miami, I was basically focused on my travel uh, content creation. So after Miami, I basically had a big trip in Spain planned, and not only Spain, but I went to Turkey as well after.
Really? When was
Yeah,
this?
this was in November, so I
Oh,
basically had
I
this
must have
Spain.
missed this. I had no idea. You went to Turkey, huh?
Yeah, I did. I went to Turkey immediately after Spain, but the reason I went to Turkey was actually for a hair transplant. So I'll take my hat off so you can kind of see, but as you can see, they kind of covered the front side of my head before this whole part was like very bad. And although I do wish the hairline was a little lower based off what they did thus far, I am happy with it so far. It's still supposed to grow, of course, and increase density. So we'll see how it looks like in about a year's time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
But
cool, dude.
yeah, man, what about you? What you been up to since Miami?
A lot of things and nothing at the same time, I suppose. But I wanted to ask you what you thought of that video, dude. What did you think? You,
The
you were
my
the main audience for that one.
Yeah, man. So the your videos are cool, but my only response to it is that nowadays, like I like long video vlog formats. I used to watch a bunch of them back in the day, but now it seems like just the audience in social media is just fine or very fine tuned towards short form content, you know?
Yeah.
So even for me, like with the content creation course that I took, it really stressed on the ideas of using like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, or even just TikTok to grow your content and your reach because most people on a day-to-day basis are on the shorts. It's called doom scrolling. I'm pretty sure you've heard of it. So a lot of people are doing that. So as far as if you're trying to grab eyes, that vlog may not grab as many eyes due to the long form nature of it. But as a personal connection, you know, to the video, going with you and the boys, that obviously was a nice nostalgic feeling that came from the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
brought
when
back
I
all the memories.
I made that movie or that short video or that I made that video in heat where I was really passionate about it. It was like a fever, like, hey, I gotta finish this.
Mm,
And I'm pretty sure I did it in 3 days or 4 days. And it wasn't until like the end of the second day that I realized, damn, this is long. This is
mm-hmm,
the longest video I've ever made.
mm-hmm.
And I wasn't gonna change that when I was so close to the end. But I did notice that and I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming at all. But yeah, I made that in just heat and this white fever that I gotta get it done. I was excited, I was passionate, I was thinking about Miami for some reason.
Yeah.
And you're right about that whole thing about the audience these days. They're so fine tuned to short content. I feel like with the point that I've reached up to now in terms of creating stuff, I feel like it has the potential to live up to what was considered quality back in the day. But
Mm-hmm.
now we're so far removed from that. Things have changed.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Like, 'cause I also always come with this battle of creating what I want, how I want it, versus tailoring it to audience demand. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, sometimes need to uh, form their content in a way that optimizes viewer retention, viewer engagement, and stuff like that. But sometimes you just want to push out something like you did, just off the heart, off the cuff, no mass editing, no, not too much structure, just something that's fully creative and from the heart. So do you have these battles when you're creating content, or you just shoot from the hip and go with it?
I like that bit of language you used. I think I always shoot from the hip. And I've made so many things and I've realized more and more that I don't know what the audience ever wants. I don't even know what my audience is or who my audience is.
Mm,
You know, my mom likes the stuff I make, my dad. Some people vibe with the stuff I make, some people just don't, and I don't know I don't know what my audience is. And if I don't even know who they are, I don't know what they want. And even if I did know who they were and what they wanted,
hmm.
just the person I am, I don't think I would make things that cater to them specifically. It would just still be something that I shoot from the hip, so to speak.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, when you do that, you're definitely not seeking anything in return. Like there's no, you're not trying to, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably creating content, again, that's from the heart. You're not expecting any views. You're not even expecting, any sort of business from it. But, with my travel content creation and the course that I was in, it really kind of stressed content creation as a business, and that sometimes, you have to make those sacrifices to the creativity piece to, again, optimize for the algorithm. And again, when you're growing, you also want many people to see your content, right? So in order to get that reach and that growth, people can sometimes structure the content in a certain way. Like, for example, optimizing the thumbnail, optimizing the hook, um, etc. So, like in your video, you had a compilation of clips from Miami, right? And especially for somebody who was part of that trip, I can live through those clips and really put myself in that footage. But if somebody like doesn't know you, doesn't know the significance of the trip, of like how it was, a celebration of our friend's wedding, almost like a bachelor trip essentially. So
It was a bachelor trip.
exactly. So if the user doesn't know that, or you don't kind of like bring him in the storytelling piece, then it may not mean as much to them as it meant to me. So
Mm.
so that's what I mean about structuring and stuff, to really put yourself in the or not the customer, but I guess the viewer's perspective, and bring them on a journey. Because when I feel like, and this is the way I like to do it sometimes too, where you're so you're making it in the heat, so it's literally a self-expression of what you want to put out there, but it's not catered to anybody specific. It's more from you. So this is just something I have to constantly face when I'm making content. Because if it were up to me, I may make more long form content, really speaking to the viewer. And you can do both, right? You can make long form content, you can make short form content, structured, unstructured, whatever you want to do. But that's something I have to face when I'm making content.
Mm. I I don't know if I consider myself a content creator. I've made so many different things, but I don't think I've ever seen myself under that label.
Hmm.
But I like how you're talking about the business thing. I have always viewed making anything I've done as a business because it is hard work. Whether it might appear that way to someone or not, it is a lot of hard work. And the only people that can be aware of that is you if you're doing it alone or whoever else you're working with. And I don't think I ever specifically expect anything out of the things I make, but my dad once told me, and he's very right, all people, doesn't matter who you want to get a sense of appreciation. And I think that is something that I subconsciously look for because, again, it is hard work. And then you put it out there because you're so excited to share it with people. And it might be their taste, it might not be, but for myself, I've noticed I'm always looking like, hey, is there at least just one person who could tell me like, hey, I saw that, man, that was cool. That was
Yeah.
cool. I noticed that. And that makes it feel good. Even though that was never the expectation, so to speak, and you were just working on it because it was something that you enjoyed, there is still something about just hearing that from someone else. Wow, that was cool.
Yeah. No, it's almost it's a form of validation, wouldn't you say? like
Mm.
validating your content. I mean, obviously you think it's good, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So you may make something and you might be like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. Like it's like an art piece you made, you see the beauty in it, you see the vision, but then somebody who's not in that same, mental state, they're not going to, they may not see it the way you see it. So why do we seek validation from a third party anyways? It's
It's a tricky
very,
word that you're saying there, and
uh,
I'm so glad you brought that up because I've been thinking about that for like the past 3 weeks or so. That I don't think I was ever someone who sought validation, but then there's things that I've made that I thought were really beautiful, and I think that I can be an honest critic and look at the stuff that I've made and separate the good things that I've done from the things that were okay.
mhm,
But I still hope that someone can at least still see the good stuff about it, the beautiful
mhm.
stuff about it. I know there's flaws to it, but I also know there's some real beauty there. And so I don't know if I don't think I'd call it validation, but just that feeling of can you at least acknowledge the beautiful thing? Can you at least see the beautiful thing like I do? That's a
Yeah,
question I think of.
interesting. I no, I see your point. And then I see your point because I have to deal with that too when I make content, right? Like I think I made something nice. Can anybody else see it? Are they also seeing what I'm seeing, or am I being biased or delusional towards my own work? So that's why I think validation to a degree is valid, right? Like like if something's good, you would expect that the majority of the viewers or the participants would see it the same way. It's kind of it is confirmation. It's confirmation bias, right? Like you want confirmation from your friends, your families, your colleagues in whatever industry you're making the content in. So there is power to it. And of course, if you get more positive remarks and appreciation, that means you kind of grabbed somebody's attention, right? In a good way. Like you grabbed their attention, you gave them something to appreciate, and they responded with an affirmative a reaction. So that gives you self-confidence, it's like you dress well, you go to a party or something, you're wearing your best clothes, you think those clothes look good, but if nobody compliments you that night, then is was it really good, or was it just something you thought?
Right there. That's a very good way to explain it. It's just like that. That's how I've been thinking. Like going back to that thing of, hey, I see the beauty in this. Do you see the beauty in this? And that's the conflict where maybe you did wear some really cool clothes, but nobody said anything.
Yeah,
And the conflict is what happens when no one says anything? Do you start to question yourself? Do you start to doubt
yeah,
yourself that, hey, maybe my clothes aren't cool?
yeah.
But there is a reality where it's like, actually, they were cool, but nobody said anything.
Right. And that's, I think, it's a relationship with yourself that develops over time. Like, so in the growing up, you might start saying, "Oh, you know what? I need." Nobody said anything. That means it must not have been good. But then as you grow older, you're like, you know what? I like the way I looked. And although other people may not think the same, the whole world might think it's ugly. If I think it's good, I'm going to represent it with no F's given. Like,
You told me that on the beaches in Miami.
dude, I didn't even remember that, but now, so I guess,
Yeah, at
like,
night.
yeah, man. So that I do, that's why I also, but then that comes with like, I don't know if you want to use the word self-confidence, because again, like, maybe like you said, there's flaws, but can you appreciate the beauty or the angle that I'm looking at it at? Can you see what I'm seeing? Uh, That's definitely true as well. So again, that balance of like confirmation and self-acceptance, that's that's something that's a battle I don't think will ever go away. Like it's just something you have to go through life, but you can start, based off your experience, your own sense of taste of whatever we're dealing with, you'll be able to gauge yourself and have self-confidence on your conclusions about things. So I do think it develops over time, and that's a relationship with yourself that you need to helps you understand yourself further as well. So definitely, it's an ongoing thing, I'd say.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
This is an interesting conversation we're having because it has been subconsciously in the back of my mind for the past 3 weeks or so, just thinking about that and question like having confidence in what I do, but then wondering. Like I don't think I've ever been one to cater to an audience, but then I do wonder what is the discrepancy between me and the audience if they can't see the beauty of a thing. Something I wonder. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and the funny thing is, it can change. Because I don't know if you've seen that clip where it's like, it's just, I don't know, it's some park or, some green lawn area. Like, I guess it's some festival that's going on or something, but there's just people, with their picnic blankets and they're just sat around, I guess just doing their dates and stuff. And then there's one guy who just kind of gets up, goes to an empty field, an empty patch on that field, and just starts dancing. And the dance isn't some orchestrated act. It's like he's shooting from the hip, right? And so he's dancing, and then one person joins him. And at first you look, it's like, all right, what is this guy doing? He's just kind of dancing out of nowhere. Like there's no, I don't even know if there was music or what, but he's just doing his thing. It's weird. But then whether it's his friend or somebody else, another person joins him. Now there's two guys dancing crazy. And then another person joins. And then it's slowly, people just start getting magnetized towards it. And then boom, everybody's jumping and dancing. And that one guy just changed the whole. Now it's awkward if you're not dancing. Now you're the dude that's sitting down on the picnic blanket and you're not in the action. And it's just like, are you weird now? Like, no, you were actually normal before, but now the whole thing changed. So it's just like, yeah. So again, that's where I believe again, like if you feel it, it's real. Like if you see the beauty, it's real. It's your perception. Like hold on to it, definitely. And don't start doubting yourself, because isn't that what you're doing? Are you doubting yourself if you start to question your own um if
I
you
don't
question
think it is doubting for me. I think what it is it's opening up an inner conversation. It's having a conversation with yourself. It's like, it's it's the artist. Yeah, it's the artist having a conversation with the self. Like what's going on here? It's a part of the metamorphosis, I think is
Yeah,
what it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, I've seen that video. My friend Roderick shared that video with me once. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. And
Yeah.
it's true. It's like that's how the leader begins. It's just one random person alone. And then suddenly the flock begins to follow.
And exactly, and how that's how all these even like YouTube channels and stuff are born. Like, and again, a lot of times I ask myself, I'm like, how is this person so popular? How is this person amassed all these viewers for this certain subject? I might see it as like I'll like throw the streamers into the mix, right? Like there's some streamers that are just just they're having fun, but I don't see it as fun. I kind of see it as silly or something like that. But they're harnessing an audience. They're harnessing a group, and although they might seem crazy to a certain group of people, they'll always find somebody going to they're going to attract. Because again, they're human too. You're human too. If they're able to feel some sort of energy, they can also translate that, and somebody's gonna pick it up and vibe with it, right? So uh, there's an audience for everybody. That's what
It
I'd say.
really is. I was at
Yeah.
the mall last weekend with my mom and my family, and my mom and I were in the store, and as we're walking out, there's like this gang of people, this group of people, and they're just laughing and giggling and having a good time, and they seem really outrageous in the general scene. But then there's one dude recording them with the camera, and it's a YouTuber, and he's being followed around by an entourage,
Hmm.
and they just look so silly in that moment. But of course, as you said, they have an audience. They have people who are gravitating to what they're putting out there.
Yeah.
And although they seem kind of strange in that moment, it's like online, there's people watching.
Yeah, man, it's they're living in a whole almost like a universe that you might not even be tapped into, so you don't even know what is going on in that world. So
Yeah.
it's pretty deep, yeah. And
Yeah. It was Rob Lowe on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about how what even is famous anymore? Like everybody's famous. I think Whitney Cummings also, she had said something similar on Joe Rogan's podcast where it's like you're just randomly you never knew this person existed, but they have like a million followers on Instagram. It's like
yeah,
I've never seen this person before in my life. Who are they? But they're so famous. And there's so many of those out there. So what even is fame anymore? What even is
what is
any of
fame,
that?
and I would also give and to add to that, what is privacy? Because back in the day, people like I used to, I mean, even back in the day, I used to value privacy, like and that's why me even doing content creation was kind of like a step outside my comfort zone because I was always used to a private lifestyle, like you have a close circle of friends, you're close with your family, you kind of keep your discussions and gatherings for the people in attendance. You don't broadcast everything to everyone every time. So now, but we live in this age where it's like the village has now expanded to the entire world, right? So like your small communities is has expanded. Everything's been globalized. The markets have been globalized. Relationships have been globalized. People are meeting each other from different countries just by connecting and making plans. And back in the day, that would not be uh, very like convenient, for somebody to travel all the way, not being able to really get to know the person, especially now we have FaceTime. You can video call somebody, get like a live interaction with them. So things have globalized for sure, and that has resulted in a new dynamic of privacy, because what is privacy now? Because everything is online, social media. Again, it's like crazy if you're not on social media. But before, at one point, if you were on social media talking too much, it's like, oh, look at this guy, like, like doing, like, he's talking too much almost. But now it's like you're not talking enough if you're not on social media.
No, I
So,
know what you mean. And I
yeah.
think that phenomenon has exploded more and more by the years. When I began this podcast almost 3 years ago now, I felt like I was kind of at the tail end of when it was still kind of novel. Like I remember just the interactions I would have with people in real life at first when they would find out there'd be like some sort of they would look at it in a different way than now. And I'm not entirely sure how to explain it, but now it seems like almost everyone is up to something
Hmm.
content creation wise, right?
Hmm.
Almost everyone has a platform where they're trying to promote a business or their lifestyle or whatever. And I feel like when I started, that was still going on, but I was still at the tail end where it was just novel enough. Like, oh, you do this. Interesting. That's I've met someone who is doing that in real life. But now I feel like I just know so many people who are doing things like that just online that have a platform.
No, it's yeah, 100%. I mean, it's allowed people opportunity to really grow a business off their interests and hobbies, something that they're genuinely passionate about. Like for example, let's put the light onto your music or my travel content creation, right? So, I enjoy traveling, I enjoy capturing beautiful moments in nature or just fun unpredictable moments with people. And I also love self-improvement, so I kind of like all wrap that into one brand, which has become all essentially my personal brand as well. And people are using that because there's value in connecting with people that believe in similar things as you, or who you can help or entertain or educate using your platform. So
I
like,
think there is the idea of value. Because maybe your experience is different, but my experience is like if I see someone out there in the world doing something creative or interesting, I get excited for them and I'm like, wow, let me connect with them and see what's up. But usually that never goes anywhere because we're all
mhm,
so self-centered into our own worlds. And I feel like I'm like that too sometimes. Or maybe somebody wants to hop on with me and I'm just kind of self-centered into my own world where I don't take a chance to appreciate what they're doing.
can you
It's like a
elaborate on that?
solipsistic attitude. Like, let me see.
Like somebody wants to join you on your efforts, or they just want to be part of your content. Like what?
Like, there was this one guy where I randomly stumbled upon his music and I really liked it. I thought it was cool that he was doing it and he was consistent with it. And I'd listen to what he was up to and I'd give him like honest critiques like, hey, this was really cool. I like this. Can you tell me what you meant by these lyrics and this and that? But this guy was just a ghost. Like he'd only respond here and there or whatever. And it's like, hey, you're not even that big and I'm actually enjoying what you're putting out there. Maybe you could interact with me a little, but it was
Yeah,
just so dry. And maybe because that guy was just so self-absorbed in his own work. And so it's like there's potential to build bridges with people, but it feels like, in my experience, people are so absorbed in their own little worlds and their own little kingdoms
hmm.
that they're not really as interested in building bridges.
No, and I will add to that. I growing up more so, especially, I was very like face down, tunnel vision attitude. But once you start looking up and around you, it's almost foolish for you to act that way because there's so much life that you get by connecting with other people and essentially going to different, and that's what travel also kind of showed me as well. It's like you're in your own bubble, living in your own like community, especially if you've lived in your hometown for over like 10, 15 years. You're missing out on a lot of other diversity, new ideas, new food, new language, new experiences, new landscapes. So there's you gotta explore. I feel like in life you have to explore, which is why I love travel as well because you're forcing yourself out your comfort zone. You might have a good experience, you might have a bad experience, but for me, what I find is if you're overall a good person, you're gonna find other good people as well wherever you go, and you can make some awesome memories that you couldn't have done if you were solo.
What do you think about people that have a mindset where they say, I can't travel because it's too much money or something like that? What do you say to those people?
Uh, I'd say it obviously always depends on your situation, your priorities. Travel may not be your priority, uh, and I can understand that, you know. However, if you really want to travel, like you can make it happen. There are like people on YouTube, for example, that have done challenges like $100 a day, or let's say $20 a day in this country or that country. Like they challenge yourself, get creative. Like don't block yourself from an opportunity or like desire. Try to be creative. Yeah, it might be more difficult than someone who has a lot of money and the time, and they're just going and doing it, but you'd probably have a much cooler adventure, honestly, if you were dealing with those circumstances and you had to
Like Rick
maneuver a different way.
Steves.
Rick, yeah, Rick Steves, he has a whole travel company,
I
right?
love that man. I love that
Yeah.
man. When I went on this one trip to Turkey, this one lady that was traveling with me, she's
Hmm.
like, I've seen every Rick Steves episode. She'd been to like 80 countries or something. It was insane.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, Rick Steves is amazing. He's definitely a person that's had an effect on me and having an interest to travel.
No, for sure. And again, like take your time, take it slow, work with friends, like just like we did the Miami trip that we did. All the things that we did, you know, riding on that yacht, getting some nice cars, going to nice dinners. Like it was all possible because we worked together. We split costs. We enjoyed the time with each other. Like if you were solo, it's like fighting. If you had to fight a dragon, would you not prefer a team with you versus just a single person like going at it? Like, there is like, yeah, that's what, and that goes back to
Is there
building.
any shame in working with a team? Because I
Is
think
there any
there's this
shame?
masculine idea that you have to be Beowulf. You got to slay the dragon alone.
Dude, I used to think like that, but I think that's an ego trap. Like it's an ego trap because the greatest things in life are done through teams and organizations, companies. Like an individual can't beat a powerful company. Uh, Ideas are powered by the amount of people that believe in them. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
um, no, there is power in numbers, and that's what I've learned personally.
You can't do it all by yourself. I think that's something I have to really come to terms with. Because I've noticed that about myself. I always have this, maybe it's to like prove something to myself. I can do this alone, whatever it is. But that is some good insight you have there.
Yeah, I mean everything around you, man. I mean, look at the tree outside. It needs the sun. It needs the water cycle. Everything. The birds help the flowers grow. Like everything is connected. You can't survive alone. Even if your solitude is important for your own health and mind as well, take some time to be alone, think to yourself, be in your own bubble at times, but you have to be connected at the same time. There's a balance to it both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I've been meaning to talk to you about for a long time since Miami.
Mhm.
We went on a morning coffee run and
Mhm.
we went to a cafe.
Mhm.
And at that cafe, I looked at the menu and I didn't get anything, but you
Yeah.
and the other guys did get something.
Sure.
And then we're driving away, we're going back to the Airbnb. And then I say, hey man, actually, I do want to get a coffee. Can we
Yeah.
stop somewhere? And
Sure.
you'd said to me, hey, well, why didn't you just get one from that place?
Yeah.
And I just didn't. And then we ended up going to another place and it took more time. And the coffee was probably less good than the coffee that you guys got. And
Yeah.
and I remember thinking in that moment, I was like, wow, that really happened.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned it to you in Miami where sometimes what happens in life is you have a good thing in front of you, but for whatever reason, you put it off because maybe you think there's something better later down the road.
Mhm.
But maybe that's not always the case, as in the example of this coffee run. That
Sure.
coffee was right there. It was convenient. It was good,
Sure.
but there was a delay. We went somewhere else, took more time. It was mediocre coffee.
Sure.
Whatever. So, what do you think about that? When you have something good in front of you,
Yeah.
how do you know to go for it versus this mentality of, I'm going to put this off on delay because maybe there's something better down the road?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question. I'm facing certain questions. I mean, I'll put it out in the air. Let's say marriage too, right? Like, I mean, marriage is a big deal. Like, I mean, this isn't also, it's not like coffee where you can like, all right, you can go down and even if it goes bad, like, all right, I'll get another coffee the next day. Like, this is a serious situation. So, and there's always that question of like, all right, what if, if I lock down now, am I killing my chances of a potentially a better relationship or something else down the line? I don't know, but this is where faith comes into play. And again, I'm kind of like taking the coffee situation to a much deeper level, but I think this is where faith comes into play. If you have something good in front of you, I think sometimes in these certain situations where you can't answer the question yourself, and even after asking other people's advice and opinions, you still don't feel any solace with a decision, you put it on God. Like this is where I come into play. So like if you put it on God, you're like, God, I think this is the right decision. I'm gonna go with it. If there's any, if you don't think that's the right decision for me, like give me a sign or something. Otherwise, I'm gonna go with it. So so that way, at least you put it on a higher power, and it kind of takes off the stress of making that decision on off of you, and you kind of put it on God. You're like, you know what? Like it's not like I tried coming to a rational conclusion, I couldn't, but I'm gonna put it on God and put faith in front of me and walk with it. So, but in the coffee situation, right? You for what I don't know whatever reason, maybe they're the ambience of
It's
the
funny. It
place.
was the price. I was like $6 for coffee. We go to the other
Sure.
place. It was $9. It was
Yeah.
worse.
So yeah, but again,
Oh my God.
so some people might value different things. Like some people might value price. For me, it could have been the ambiance, or just even if the waiter was rude or something like that, or like the cashier, that would turn me off because it's also like, man, this person was just rude to me, and they're handing me a cup of coffee. I don't even know if they put love into the way they made the coffee or what. Like it's just energy
Food
too for
takes
me.
on the mentality of the preparer.
I would say so. If you eat
Definitely
food made
does.
if you
Yeah.
eat food from your mom, it's gonna taste much better than it does from like somebody who just
The grumpy
hates their life.
barista.
The grumpy barista, absolutely. So, if people value different things. If you had a valid reason, like okay, let's say price was the reason. Okay, price
Yeah, because a
turned
cup
me.
of coffee in Houston is like $3, $4. So like what?
Yeah.
6? And then that's the funny part. It's like I thought there'd be something better down the road. That coffee was more expensive. It was a smaller cup,
Oh my
and
God.
it tasted mediocre.
Yeah.
Oh
Hey
man.
man. Yeah. It's then either you just learn like maybe I don't know, check the menu next time, like
I'm
of the.
grateful for that experience though, because it was a very eye-opening lesson. And recently I've been on this journey to lose weight. Last week, or just a few days ago, I was really craving Dave's hot chicken. I've been
Mm,
on this really good diet for a minute, and just this one day I was really craving Dave's hot chicken.
mm-hmm,
But I resisted that urge. I
mm-hmm.
didn't go for it. What ended up happening is the next couple of days, I ended up indulging in slices of pizza and Popeye's fried chicken and ice cream.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it made me think, I got so pissed off at myself because I was like,
yeah,
you know what? If I had just given in to this urge of Dave's hot chicken just that one day,
yeah,
if I had just neutralized that one desire,
yeah,
all those other rebounds or all those
yeah.
lesser desires of having all that other junk food would never have happened.
You're
If
right.
I had just obeyed my urge that one time, I would not have had those other junk food situations. Isn't that interesting?
So you're saying like paying a small price now to avoid paying a big price later?
What was like, what did I want most? Dave's hot chicken. Okay, you know what? You can indulge one time. Obey your urge. Because I didn't do that, I paid a
Yeah,
price. I was
right.
punished by indulging in all this other junk food that I didn't even care about to begin with. It just
Yeah,
happened to be there, so I ate it. It's like, no,
yeah,
you would not have been in those situations if you just obeyed your urge that one time. Could have neutralized the desire.
yeah, yeah. Dude, that's a fun. I mean, I like that you bring that up. Uh, because one time I was training with a friend for soccer, and he said, like, normally I like to go all out. Like, if it's whatever the workout is, I want to give it my all. But sometimes it's not the correct move. Sometimes it's only good to hit 70 to 80% of your capacity for that day so that you have some energy left in the tank for tomorrow. So if you overdo yourself one day, then the next day you're gonna rest, you're gonna miss the consistency, you're just gonna you're gonna hurt yourself for the bigger picture. And I think this goes back to, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Um, because like you said, in this situation with the food, if you obeyed your urges in the beginning, you might have quenched that desire, and giving yourself a longer stretch of consistency moving forward. And that's true, man. And this is the relationship with yourself as well. You're gonna get to know yourself through this struggle. You're gonna know like, oh, you know what? I realize that after about a week or so, I get this extreme urge, and if I don't quench it, I'm gonna screw myself for the next week. So I'm gonna learn. I know that about myself now. So I'm gonna play my. You're playing against yourself. So you have to know yourself. Then you got to be like, all right, I know he's about to get hungry on Friday night. Let me give him one Dave's hot chicken sandwich. So now he's good for the next week and he'll be on point. So yeah,
Yeah.
you got to get to know yourself, man. Like it's
And this is what you're saying right there is precisely what I'm talking about. That these experiences, these situations where that anger and frustration and that unease build up, you get to know yourself more. It teaches you, and those lessons stay with you. That Miami lesson with that coffee run, Dave's hot chicken,
yeah,
it's vividly etched in my memory. I think about these things,
yeah.
and it helps me in formulating my next move, my next decision.
No, you just showed me that coffee like parallel with the Dave's hot chicken example. There's a parallel, so it's kind of showing
There
you.
is.
It's teaching you about yourself, and maybe I feel like your self-conscious is telling you to make that adjustment then. Like maybe, and if you feel so that the next time this type of decision comes around, have fun with it. Instead of avoiding the immediate urge, just try to go for the immediate and see how it plays out. Maybe you take the immediate urge, and then next day you're still gonna hit the KFC and the ice cream again anyway. So,
No, no. So see, that's the interesting thing. Another part about knowing yourself is I know for a fact that if I did go and eat Dave's hot chicken that one day,
mhm,
I would not have indulged in that junk food because
okay,
my desire would have been fulfilled. I would
sure.
have no need to indulge in those lesser desires that weren't even on my mind. I know that about myself. So that's the
Okay.
interesting thing,
That
right?
is that is interesting, and then that's where I have the debate with myself too. Because let's say you're a champion, like, and when you like UFC just happened too, and Khabib I was listening to something about Khabib, right, and he's talking about sacrifice and discipline, and I think that's where discipline. I mean, then I feel like that's mental strength then too, because if you knew that you would capitulate if you didn't have the Dave's hot chicken. My question is, why can't you block out the Dave's hot chicken and block out the capitulation? Like, how do you grow your point to where you can go a complete 30 days with no junk food? And that's a challenge. And again, maybe you grow to it. It's not something you can just hit on day one. But maybe I'd say, okay, week one, I know I'm going to give myself the Dave's hot chicken, but then week two, I'm going to mentally prepare for it and not hit the Dave's hot chicken. And I'm not going to try to capitulate either. I don't know. There's different ways around it. It's going to be a different answer for everybody, I feel. But I want to ask myself, why can't I completely discipline myself to the point where I could last 30 days? And anytime, I'm not even going to quench the desire once. Like, I'm just going to really have it on lock. Like that's so sometimes I wonder if I can hit those levels of discipline. Because I mean, Khabib can, he's, I mean, the way he makes it sound like I mean, probably true, like hardcore workouts, clean eating on long stretches of time. And they're doing probably much more intense workout because if I start working out, I start getting hungry. Like if I'm doing weightlifting, it makes me want to eat more. So it's harder
Hmm.
to discipline my food because let's say you're eating clean. Yeah, you're eating clean, but like the urge thing. The urge starts talking to you in the corner of the room. It's like, hey man, come on, it's been about a week. Like, can we get some ice cream or just a one chocolate? And then the one chocolate turns to the whole bar, and then you just like so it's a game, bro. Like, but I want to be. You gotta beat yourself. Like it's in every kind of thing. Like it's crazy.
No, most definitely. I don't know about you, but I don't know if you knew this about me, but before I used to be pretty fit. Before the
Yeah, I
pandemic,
saw.
I used
I
to be
saw.
pretty fit, and
Yeah.
I if I was committed to a thing, I was committed. There wouldn't be the urge, so to speak. I think what happened in this case for me was it was the first weekend, so I kind of felt that. But I think to achieve that Khabib mindset, as you're saying, I think it really has something to do with faith and just dog mentality, as David Goggins would say. You're just
Yeah,
locked into your goal, and this is just
yeah.
what you're gonna do, and that's it.
That right there, man. Yeah, I'd like to feel that if I can, like at least one point in my life, that unwavering dedication and commitment to something, and then seeing the fruits of that dedication and labor and commitment, uh, which is why I do believe Ramadan, for example, is coming up. It's like why why is it easier to fast during the month of Ramadan than like let's say tomorrow? If I were trying to fast tomorrow, and this is where the power of numbers come into play too, because if everyone around you is also doing it, you feel more in union with people in the struggle. So if you have people in the struggle with you, I think it helps. Even with David Goggins, I remember he was talking about like a boat, like Boat Crew 2 or something, I think it was, like where he's trying to lift like this huge log and they're in the water, it's cold at night. But and then one person, I don't know if it was him, but one person, you know, the officers were, I guess, trying to shit talk to them and try to like make them break. But then I think David Goggins, if I'm not mistaken, spoke back to them and he basically showed resilience, and that inspired the other guys in the struggle to light up and all produce that resilience as well. And now they became a bigger force against the battle. But if it was one, let's say David Goggins was alone trying to, he had a one man, he just screw this, I'm going home. Like, but when you have other people you're responsible for, or like a bigger purpose or something, I think that helps you pull through those hard times. With
I
Khabib,
agree. I agree.
yeah,
One thing I wanted to mention though was I hear that talk that fasting in Ramadan is easier than it is outside. But
hmm
in my experience, I've never felt that. I've thought it was just okay the same way.
I don't
Fasting
know.
is fast for me. Fasting is just fasting. But I've heard that talk before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I mean, I don't have that experience, so that'd be interesting to see, or maybe you should question that to yourself. Why is it that
Well,
it's
because it
this?
makes me think like, what if that's just like a group thing that maybe people just hear that and then they just buy into that opinion. Like, oh yeah, you're
Uh-huh.
right. It is really hard.
I
But
don't know.
what if that's just a group thing?
It is, but I don't know. When Ramadan comes, it's like a conscious effort that's like, okay, we're here, we're about to do this, your family's doing it. So and I've noticed with myself, like I've done these fitness challenges. I did a fasting challenge with my uncle where we did this like it was like 3 days of fruits and vegetable 3 days of fruits, 3 days of vegetables, and 3 days of meat. So it was about 9 days. We kind of did this kind of experiment it was me and him. But if it was me solo and I was eating fruits for 3 days, I'd be like, all right, man, this is good. I already got the gist of it. Like, but with him, it's like, all right, we set this target. We're keeping each other accountable. If one person, drops, you basically break your word. You made a commitment to kind of get this done. So if you have a partner that keeps you accountable, it does add some, it helps.
The Greeks and the Romans believed in an entity called the daemona, which is kind of like, for lack of better words, the higher self within you. I don't even know why I did that. The higher self within you.
hmm
You said your uncle was saying, "Hey, we set out to do this. We're gonna do this." I think for
hmm
me, it's that daemona. It's that higher self that says, "Hey, we're gonna go out to do this," and that other entity in me
hmm
suffices as another person. That, oh, I have to live up to my higher self.
Right,
My higher self set that out for us. We
right.
have to commit to it. That's my other person.
That is your other person. And I think that's also a relationship too, because if you consistently let that person down, which is your higher self, yourself essentially, you're kind of teaching him that you're not reliable, you're not it kind of sets a
He
negative.
loses respect for you.
Yeah, man. So, and I'm guilty. I mean, we're all guilty. We always have these ups and downs with ourselves. So, being around people that keep their word, that take these types of things seriously, this is kind of like, commitment, trust, honesty, um, just come brotherhood, just like genuine good traits. I think you having a circle of those people is crucial to reinforce those values within yourself and help each other reinforce those values as well. And a lot of the times, again, you like to do things solo to kind of say, oh, well, if I can, because that, if you, let's say, did the fast alone, I could argue to my uncle, be like, yo, man, look what I did. I just did like a like 9 day fast. Like look, like you feel the ego. But if both people do it together and you guys both achieve that success, not only does the relationship between you guys
Hmm.
get better, but you guys both accomplished a
Yeah,
feat that you couldn't probably have done as well if you did solo. So,
that's a good point, man. Growth and
and
ego is deception.
yeah, for real, it is just that's a good way of saying it.
Had to quote myself on that one.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's
Yeah.
a good one. So that's what I've learned too. Like stay humble as much as you can, and you'll see the growth. Maybe, and again, it's kind of like I guess those that ego stroke gives you a temporary short-term high, but being humble and kind of going through like the bigger picture route definitely pays off in the long run. Like you'll be thankful you made that decision.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with the right people. But sometimes that journey is a never ending one. I remember when I first started university, I told this girl I was walking with through the campus,
Yeah,
I'm looking for my tribe out here. I'm looking for people that I can resonate with. And
sure.
I found different groups of people that I could oscillate to from time to time and,
Hmm.
have a shared interest or way of looking with. But I don't, I felt like those people stuck with me just for phases in my life. And that journey of looking for the right people to be around is just, perhaps it's just a continual search. Maybe you never arrive. It's just
Hmm.
always treading the path.
Dude, that's again a funny thing you mentioned because my travel account is kind of based off that experience of trying to find your tribe, but realizing that you're never probably going to fit in anywhere. So instead of trying to fit in, you appreciate the differences between you and the people around you, but still connecting on the things you can connect on. So you kind of have to be your own person at the same time, but also understand how to connect where you can connect. And I do
Yeah.
believe, like, understanding God, humanity, and yourself just shows you that everybody internally operates on fundamental similarities, but there will be differences no matter what. So just try to align where you can and don't force the differences to connect. If in fact appreciate them, be like, yo, I see how you're different in that. Okay, I'm different like this. Like learn why they're like
Yeah.
that. Learn why you're like that. So
That's so funny because that's how it felt in Miami. And I remember this funny moment on the yacht where on the playlist I had put on the Goo Goo Dolls and Vampire Weekend,
yeah,
and everybody was booing it like, "Yo, change the music." And
yeah,
I was kind of offended. I was like, "What?" And then you told me later, you're like, "Hey, dude, like those songs were cool, but it wasn't the vibe of that scene." And I
yeah,
thought about that, and it's like that's a good point. And the kind of music that you all were interested in it's not really my taste, but
sure,
I started listening to more of it, and I was like, okay, what's the beauty in this? I wanted to start to appreciate the beauty in this. Like Rick Rubin talks about it. He's like, maybe I can listen to a thing and not really like it, but if a lot of people are really vibing with it,
yeah,
then I have to pause and I try to understand what is it that's beautiful about this? What is it that's interesting about
Yeah,
this? And
yeah,
I felt that way about that song "Unforgettable" by French Montana.
yeah.
That's a cool tune, man. It's a good
It is.
song.
Yeah. No, that one has a lot of memories attached to it as well.
Yeah,
That's
yes,
yeah,
that song. It's like its own little entity, its own little being where
yeah,
memories are on that song. And it's
exactly.
like French Montana has nothing to do with those memories, but it's like my memories on that song.
Exactly. No, they even say there's smells like different senses can re lit like memories from the past. Like if you smell your mom's cooking or something, it might trigger. Like in Ratatouille, I think the dudes,
Absolutely.
yeah, and then it
Ego.
brought, yeah. So it
Anton Ego. I was
exactly,
thinking about that right before you said it. It's crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy.
So see, it's all it's cool. The psyche and just connections in general are amazing. So, and
Something
I go ahead.
I was just gonna say something I was reflecting on was music and fragrances both inspire memory, as you were saying. You know,
Hmm.
you remember things. But it's interesting that a lot of people want to be musicians, but there's not as many people that want to be perfume makers. Is that interesting?
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Perfume makers, yeah. Why? Why?
Something
Yeah.
to think about. But please do continue, as you were saying.
Uh, no, I was just saying, like, when it came to, understanding, trying to understand something you don't necessarily vibe with, but you see everyone else vibing with, that does happen. Like with rap music, like growing up, I never really was a fan of certain mumble rap, especially when that came around. Like a lot of kids in school, I was like, man, do you even know what he's saying? They're like, no, we just like, like, the rhythm, I guess, of it. And so, I was like very confused, and I was even trying to understand these rappers, especially the ones that come from like, they rap about drugs and crime and stuff. So I didn't come from that
Ghostface
background.
Killer.
Ghostface, I mean, I'm specifically thinking of even like older Future and stuff like that. So I was curious about it, and then I developed a liking after I started to understand their differences, and I started to connect with the underlying similarities between like where that energy or artistic expression was coming from.
See, so that's a very nice thing. And I noticed that about you in Miami. Like, I was playing Chris Cornell, which is not the scene of Miami, but you could still appreciate, you're like, hey, that's a good song. I like how he's
Right.
singing. I like that style. And I was talking to my friend Gus about this, who worked on the album with me. And I was telling him about what happened in Miami on the yacht and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was laughing and he's like, I was telling him, so going back to the beginning of our conversation, I like to think I'm an honest critic and I can see the beauty in a thing and then its
Yeah.
flaws. And I try to see the beauty in a thing, but then it seems like when I try to present a thing to someone, like Chris Cornell, for example,
Yeah.
maybe someone is just going to cancel that. Like, no, we don't want that. They're not even going
Right.
to try to see the beauty in that. And
Hmm.
that's where the conflict comes. And that's where the frustration comes. Like, hey, man, I'm trying to appreciate your taste. Can you appreciate mine?
Sure.
And that doesn't
Sure.
always happen. But you did appreciate it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's because I also want to be open. I'm trying to understand people as well, right? Like, so my curiosity also kind of gives me the ability to kind of like, I don't want to reject something impulsively. I want to look into it, and if I feel that I still disagree, then yeah, I'll walk away from it. I'm not going to force the other party to try to convert my way or something. But I think what you're kind of saying is like, give me a fair shot at least. Don't just like
Yeah.
completely
And
dismiss.
Gus was responding to me. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're right. I have that experience as well." Because he's more of a metalhead, I guess, or a rocker than I am.
Hmm.
And he was saying, maybe we're just too nice. We give people that fair shot, but they don't give it back to us.
Hmm. And that, I mean, hey, I wouldn't even, and if they don't, again, it's something to understand. Like, why are they being so against? It's like a new ideology, right? Like, if you're, again, and it goes back to if you're so used to something, tradition, for example, tradition has strength to it. Like, if people have been doing it over and over, it's like habits. It's like not an individual habit, but a collective habit of ideas, of actions, and this creates a culture, right? And that culture can be hard to penetrate and reorganize. So some, and that culture might defend itself as well. Like it might be like, yeah, you know what? Like we don't accept you. Like if we put racism, for example, into play, like if you're a predominantly like white community, or let's say any ethnicity or culture for that matter, and someone new comes into your culture, they're gonna seem weird to you, and you're gonna seem weird to them. Like it's just gonna be different. You guys are different people, different everything. So a lot of people might just completely like, you're foreign. We don't want you to just infiltrate what we have going on here. But some people will, on the edges, will be open-minded and they'll be willing to learn. And growth happens slowly. And this is another thing about, I think, life that I guess people should understand is like growth happens over time. A flower doesn't bloom in 2 days. It takes like years. And I even,
The caterpillar is ugly, the butterfly is beautiful.
and maybe the caterpillar's beautiful to someone
And
too.
maybe the caterpillar is beautiful to someone as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so again, it's just phases. Oh, I was talking to a friend, like facial hair when it first happens in high school, sometimes people look at you weird, but now when you're grown, it's like, man, I wish
Yeah.
I had facial hair. I'm like, okay, where was this when I was younger? Like,
When I was in seventh grade, one of my friends, he was on the basketball team of another middle school.
mhm,
Or no, this was eighth grade, I think, actually. But he had like a full blown beard, so he looked like he was 40 in eighth
yeah,
grade. And in my yearbook, my teacher, she was in charge of the yearbook, and they had pictures of him from a
mhm,
basketball game. And she's like, "Who's that 40-year-old man?" I'm like, "I know him. He's
yeah,
just a year older than me."
yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. The way like people perceive these things is differently with time.
Time, yeah, exact. Some people like growing long hair. Like in the Sikh community, they have the turbans and they grow out their hair. So I'm imagine. I mean, I don't know the rules and stuff, but if you did cut your hair, it might seem weird to the community. Like, why didn't you grow it out? Like, what are you like? So again, you're gonna have differences. Just don't be. I guess I would say for people, don't be so reactive to differences. Try to understand people, and tr- don't don't be so impulsive. Like, don't be reactive. Don't be so reactive. Like, look at things objectively. Try to understand them, because again, we're all humans at the end of the day.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention about that reactive, just going back to that Dave's hot chicken example again,
Hmm.
me having that urge to get that, it's not a reaction for me. It's like it it took me a full day to talk to myself and realize I do really want this.
Mm,
A reaction is just so sudden, but if you know that you really want something over a period of time, then you know that whatever move you make isn't a reaction. So
but
I know,
but but it could be still a reaction to. I mean, but let's say you have the other goal of the bigger, like more. I don't know. Let's say more important goal of losing the weight, even though you know you want it. You know that you declining your urge might result in you being upset for the next couple of days. Like, man, I really wanted that Dave's hot chicken. I told myself no, but over time that sacrifice is going to pay off in the goal of like you improving the fitness goal, right? The fitness journey. So it helps with that. So even though you wanted it, you know it wasn't impulsive. You still, it's kind of like dealing with yourself. It's like, look, man, look, I know you want it. I know you're not impulsively reacting to this decision, but just remember that you said you wouldn't. If I mean, if this wasn't your cheat day, like you said, like, all right, like I told myself I wanted, like, Sunday's my cheat day. It's Friday. I want to eat Dave's hot chicken. I really want it. I made that decision to myself, but I told myself earlier that I wasn't going to eat until Sunday. So I have to honor that previous version of myself. The new version wants it now, but I'm on like, and I'm committed to this other program or goal that I promised myself before. So,
I hear what you're saying there, but what I'm trying to get at with that is it's like that saying, sleep on it. If you sleep on it and you still have that same desire,
mhm,
then you know that that's not impulsive and your move the action you take on that isn't a reaction. It's
Okay.
because you've waited enough time to realize, actually, yeah, I do really want that.
But was that against your rules and regulations
Well, no,
to
because
the
like going back to what I was saying, it's like me disobeying that led to an even worse outcome by indulging in
Mhm.
all that other junk food that I didn't want.
Sure.
So I feel like if you neutralize that one thing, if you give yourself enough time to realize that you like a thing or you don't like a thing or you want a thing or you don't want a thing, then you realize that whatever action I take here is not just going to be an impulsive reaction. I gave myself time. This is what I really want. This is what I really think.
Okay, again, that's fine.
And it gets rid of all the other mistakes you might make in place of it.
Okay. I'm still thinking in the frame of the fitness journey. So if you made, let's say, a deadline, and this is something a problem I have is like, let's say I make a deadline, it's like I call it kicking the can. Like I don't like kicking the can. So like if I made a goal for 30 days, I'm gonna eat clean, whatever, and then I get to the end of the week and then I have that urge and I start rationalizing some or rationalizing with myself about, hey, you know what? Well, if I don't eat the Hot Dave's hot chicken now, I might result in a worse capitulation a few days after. Let me eat it. But before I even started this commitment, I told myself 30 days nothing. If I made the 30 days nothing commitment, it means 30 days nothing. I'm not going to let a later, weaker version of myself then say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to make an adjustment right now because I'm feeling differently now and I really want it." Yeah. But I also want the abs and I want the abs more so, but and then if I, and I don't know, for me, if I then gave into that urge, even if it was a simple urge, then a few days later, I'm just like, damn, man, like maybe I could have outstrength that little event. So,
I see what you're saying. I think that the
yeah,
conversations we're having is they're very similar and at some point they diverge.
yeah,
But your point definitely is valid that
yeah,
if you've made a commitment to your previous self, can you keep that commitment? And what
yeah,
I'm saying is that's a great thing to have, but if you do indulge, if you do
sure.
fall enough one time to where it's not a problem later down the road.
Correct, and I think that's where you end up going back to the original start of the conversation. How we were talking about is like you get to know yourself. So if you try the 30-day commitment and you repeatedly fail, you need to see where you're failing and then start working with that level of you. Be like, okay, I fail typically after 2 weeks. So when the second week comes, I'm gonna give myself a little indulgence to give myself a boost for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you build that habit. And if you can last those 2 weeks on a repetitive basis,
Then
then you
eventually
know
those urges just kind of disintegrate
maybe, but then
in a
there's
way.
also
Maybe.
there could be some external factor like I'm going to Miami with my boys and now there's ice cream everywhere and I want to eat the ice cream with my boys. So it's just like there's a lot of problems. So
True
this is where
story.
seriously. So
uh,
so yeah, man, agreed though. Indulge if it's going to save you from disaster for sure. If it's going to
yeah.
help you, but it is a marathon, it isn't a sprint. But sometimes I like to run the marathon as a sprint. So
You should quote
as a
yourself on that one. That's a good
yeah,
one. That's a good
yes.
one.
So
Dude,
well,
Wahaj, this has been fun. You know,
likewise.
it was good. It was in the moment. I'm wondering, man, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say but you didn't get a chance to? Something on your mind that you wanted to express?
No, this conversation definitely kind of. It's funny again. The things you mentioned, I'm kind of have those mental debates with myself as well. So all I'd say is like, hey man, it's a journey. Um, Keep understanding yourself and you got to understand yourself to actually understand others as well. So it's a journey with yourself. So don't be too hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up because it does not help you. I thought growing up that beating yourself would get you into shape. Per to say like as a beating yourself up kind of whips you into shape. but sometimes beating yourself up there has a limit. Like you also have to shower yourself. Like you gotta let yourself indulge from time to time. You gotta give yourself rest. You gotta give yourself reward. So definitely balance the discipline and the reward. So you're a human being as well. So understand that and move forward the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point, man.
But
But
no, it was a pleasure to talk to you again. Like I enjoyed this. I'd be down to do it again whenever you're down.
it was, yeah. I liked your vibe in Miami. You're a very like
Yeah,
cool spirit, very just kind of adaptive and calm and just, doing your thing.
yeah,
Appreciative of the differences.
exactly.
So it was cool. It was cool.
Cool, man. Yeah, I agree.
But I suppose until next time, eh? Inshallah.
Inshallah, bro.
You
Take
take care,
care.
eh?
Likewise.